Okay. Yeah, as Alan rightly said, this is super interesting with all these low resource languages and everything going on here. So yeah, the next we have is Building African Voices by Perez with Graham and Alan.
Yeah. Hey everyone. My name is Perez. I'll be talking about building African voices. It's joint work that we did with Graham and Alan at CMU. So there are about 2,000 languages spoken on the African continent, and for a majority of these languages, they are severely underrepresented when it comes to language technologies, and that's even worse on speech technologies. But there's a very in the situation in South Africa is better than the rest of the entire continent, where we have like the 11 South African languages having a lot more data and a lot more representation in speech and text in language technologies in general. And that's mainly because their government and other agencies are working together to provide as many resources and support for the 11 official languages. So we would like to have a similar situation that they have in South Africa. And in this project, we were trying to increase the representation of African languages, specifically for text to speech. So we have two main goals. And the first one was to build a high quality speech synthesis corpora for African languages. And at the same time, we want to enable others to build speech systems for African languages with minimum technological resources and subject matter expertise, which is particularly important when you come to African languages because a majority of people on their continent do not have a lot of resources. So if they have like access to tech, it's probably on low-end devices. And also, most people are not highly educated to enable them to like have like enough technical know-how to like build complex models. So we wanted to be able to support them to have like deployable systems that can work on their phones, and also to encourage many people to participate in the model building process, so use simpler methods. We also see that in Africa, when it comes to African languages, we have a lot more work that is done in ASR as compared to text-to-speech. And mostly there is a good effort being done by Mozilla Common Voice in collecting speech data for African languages. So a lot more African languages are being added and people are able to contribute their voices. But that's good, it works for ASR, but if you wanted to build a high quality TTS system, the data that you find on Mozilla might not be ideal because of the quality. So I'm going to show you a little demo about, we have our website, and it kind of like summarizes this project, and that's where we share our work and also ask more people to interact either by contributing or just using the models that we have. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we developed our website, and right now we've already uploaded models and data sets that we developed from the first iteration of the project. So the African Voices project is a continuous project, so that means more data is going to be added and more languages are going to be covered. But for now, this is what we have. So you could see like the languages that we have and the total like number of resources that we have and a distribution of where those languages are being spoken throughout the continent. So just to quickly take you through, so when you come here, you can see all the languages that you have, and also tell us like which language you'd like to see next, so that we can work with you to get it there. And then for the individual languages, you can see the data sets that we have, and also the synthesizers that we have for that particular language. You can listen to samples. For example, yeah, so that's a sample from, this is the first model, and then this is another model. So people can select whatever model they would like. And you could synthesize something. So that will, let's say we are languages English, and for example, if you wanted to say yeah, and you would want to get some audio. I am at a workshop. So yeah, you would get that. So in that way, people are able to synthesize. Like from our side, we're able to provide, because you're hosting the models, they're able to provide them with an option to just like synthesize the text that they want. And we provide guidelines and options for them to download the models, use them on their phones, on their laptops, and also contribute. So back to the presentation. The process of building African voices is a little bit hard, and well, the main reason is because there is very little data that is readily available. So most languages have no existing speech corpora at all, and the ones which are available are probably low quality. And if you wanted to record, you'd have, for most languages, you'd have to start by finding the text, a text corpora for that particular language, which is also like another layer of like difficulty and effort that you'll have to put in. Another problem is access to recording equipment. So you'd have to have funds, and also availability of the recording resources. For some languages I've spoken in particular regions, and not all regions have access to electricity or places where they could record things. So like, for example, a studio, and you might have to find ways of like bringing the speakers to places where you could record. So where they either find a studio, or where they could use mobile phones to be able to record and interact with you. Another problem is literacy levels. Most languages are spoken, and people don't typically write in those languages. So it becomes a bit difficult when you want to create TTS data, because ideally you'd want somebody to read this, to read text as you record them. And then also finding fluent speakers is particularly difficult for endangered languages. And finally, in this list, there are probably other more problems. Multilingualism, where we find that most Africans speak several languages. So it affects their, especially the current generation, it affects their fluency in the different languages that they speak. So in the African Voices Project, we adopted a participatory approach, which is mostly inspired by the work being done at Masakane, where they're building, they are mostly focusing on NLP research for African languages, but including people with different expertise, different backgrounds and levels, and Africans from all over to contribute. So we have three main principles that guide us in this process. The first one is accessibility. As I mentioned earlier, we want as many people as possible involved in the project. So that means using like simpler or simple to use technology, and also making sure like the output, so the models are able to run on low-end devices, and that's why we use the CMU flight to generate the file to be deployed that can be work on people's Android phones. Another thing is quality. So we employ best practices to create high quality data. Even like when we try to collect data using very low cost method. So we try as much as possible to get the best quality that we can. Finally is breadth. As we want to cover as many languages as possible, we use resources or data that are already there on the internet. We just prepare them ready for model building. And we also invite other people to contribute to the project. So we have two general categories of data, found data and created data. So for found data, these are like existing long form audio that were probably recorded for other purposes. And we look for the best quality that we can get. And we have to segment it into smaller utterances so that you can use them to build our models. The second category is created data, where we curate a text corpus and then record it. So for the first iteration, we have been able to work on 12 languages. We have created 3 languages, and for found data, we'll be able to include 11 languages. They have different number of speakers, and they're spoken in sub-Saharan Africa. So what is the process of getting this data? So the first step for created data is developing a prompt set. And first we have to find a text corpus that exists, or that you'll have to create on your own. So for this project, for English, we use the CMU Arctic data set. And then for Luo and Suba that we worked on, we had to look online for existing resources, and we were able to get data from different websites, from social media. And once you get that text corpus, you'll have to select a subset of them that is phonetically exhaustive for the language, or according to the entire corpus that you've gotten for that language. And once we select, we have our prompt set, we find a speaker. And so ideally the speaker should be fluent, is comfortable, fluent in the language, can read, and is comfortable recording. So for Luo, we were able to find someone after advertising, like online and looking for people who was fluent. And Suba, it was a bit difficult to find someone because I think there are about 10,000 speakers that are currently alive that speak the language. And it was very difficult to find someone who's really fluent in the language. But after receiving like several interest and listening to them, we were able to get a recommendation from someone who's an expert in the language. And the person who was recommended did a really good job. He was good. And then the third step is recording the speech. So for the 3 languages that recorded, they all presented unique challenges because of their uniqueness. So it was really easy. It was fairly easy to record English. I personally recorded the English voice in the CMU studios. For Suba, which is an indigenous language with very few speakers and not so many people, it's not like spoken like in the major cities or urban areas of Kenya. So we found a studio in an island where we have like concentrated speakers there. And the speaker who we found, who doesn't live there, we asked him to go to the studio where we found, and he recorded from there. And him being there was really helpful because he was able to get a lot of feedback from the studio, because the studio is focused on broadcasting in the Suba language. He was able to get feedback, and they were able to help, and we finally had a very good quality data set at the end. For Luo, we experimented with the recording in using a phone. So we recorded using an iPhone and AirPods in someone's house in Nairobi, which was like very interesting, over about a period of 8 days. So we would do like 2 to 3 hours a day. And yeah, so over 8 days, we were able to record the entire prompt that we have. And Suba, we were able to record overnight in just one sitting. And then finally, after you've recorded your speech, so it's time for quality control. You adjust the transcript. There are things that you might have not say that are in the transcript, or there are things that you added. So most of the times it's just easier to change the transcript, or if the audio is completely like wrong or misaligned, you might have to discard it from the final corpus. So for found data, it's generally in 3 steps. The first step is normalize the text. So this involves things like spelling out abbreviations, writing the like numerals in words, and adding things that are in the audio that are not in the text, or removing things that are in the text and not in the audio. Which it also prevents different levels of difficulties, especially if you do not speak the language. It may be hard for you to identify like mismatch in things. I'm sorry, give me a minute. It was a bit for the languages that we were using data. We use data from the Open Bible project, which is like Bible data, and which was recorded in like, for example, Matthew. Just give me a minute. There's something going on here.
Martina, are you still around?
Yes, sorry. I'm in a hotel room right after interspeech.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I had some interruption.
Okay, sure.
Okay, yeah, so I'm back.
Yes.
Okay, I think I was saying for the Bible data that we use, for some languages we are able to have people listen to it and identify like a lot of like patterns. For example, I think we had some languages didn't have the chapter titles in the text but they were spoken in the speech. So we were able to manually add that. Yeah, so those are for the languages that we could find people who understand or like speak them. And also for the numbers, we created an African Voices dictionary, which basically consists of like numerals, like word dictionary to word mapping of all the numbers that are available in the Bible. And we did that for like all the languages that we handled in the first iteration. So after like getting the dictionary, all we had to do was just replace all the numerals with the words. So after normalizing the text, we had to do the alignment, so the segmentation, and here we used Fastbox.
We are running out of time, so if you could get to the results.
Oh, okay.
Because we have the breakout happening soon.
Okay, so I think I'll just go straight to the results. The things that we wanted to find out are first, if the data sets are sufficient to build a high quality synthesizer in the target languages, and how much curated data is necessary, and how does curated data compare with found data. And from this results, we found that the data sets that we created, both from the found data and the created data, was sufficient. And also for the question, how much created data is necessary, we found that if you generally have 25 minutes and above of data, especially for curated, it is enough. But the catch is you'll have to kind of follow best practices in recording. So if you're recording using a phone or in a studio, or that is probably not high quality. So we talk about like some of those things that we did to make sure that despite the lack of enough resources, we were able to get a good enough quality data. So that's why you can use about like 25 minutes or or more to get a good quality synthesizer. And then finally, how does curated data compare? So our results show that curated data is better than found data when it is small. And what we think could be the reason is that for curated data, you're able to kind of like control for the phonemes of the language, try to like optimize to include as many as possible. While for found data, because it was recorded with other applications in mind, you might not have all the like phonemes of the language represented. So curated data ends up being better than found data when it is small, but as you add more data and more is being included from found data, ends up being better because obviously the recording situation for found data is usually like better. So it's a more, or in terms of like the audio, it's more like better quality. Yeah, so we were able to create and develop high quality TTS data sets for 12 African languages and hope to include more. And we trained and evaluate TTS models and also share them with people and enable others to use our models and also contribute to the project. So thank you very much for listening. And yeah, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. I don't know how much time I have left.